So I just had a quick question for you. Um,
Hopefully, we can provide some quick answers for you.
all right. So I was just wondering, do you think that most people will analyze an event or an action on their own moral framework first, or do you think that they just default to whatever their ideology or whatever their favorite content creator?
Ideology. I would say less than 5% of people have any coherent moral framework by which they analyze what's good or bad.
Okay. And sort of to tack onto that, at that point, do you think that having moral arguments with people has really any point? Because it seems to me like there's just too much subjectivity in most,
I guess
specific moral stances.
yeah, I guess the goal would be to make people think a little bit. That would be like the dream. Is it like, oh, like I'd never actually considered that before. I guess people meme about it now, but that was the original point of like the incest argument. It's like, here's something that is just on its face so obviously wrong, but then, tasked with providing like an actual cognitive reason why it's wrong was very uncomfortable and very challenging to do so. I was like, oh, well, maybe this just makes you think a little bit. That was like the whole goal of that argument, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, but the issue with that is like you never really change anyone's mind with that, though, right? So
Well,
what's
the
really
goal
the
is that
point?
like, well, you're never gonna change somebody's mind. It's just to kind of like get that process started. That like maybe you think a little bit about like, oh, well, like I don't have an answer to that, and maybe that like spurs you on into thinking about like other things. It's like, oh, well, I'm gonna consider this, and maybe I'll consider that or whatever. Maybe that's just like the catalyst, I guess. But the goal of like an argument like that isn't to like make somebody pro incest or something, right? It's more just to kind of get them to look at how they view morality, in a slightly different way.
Yeah, okay. I get that.
I just had a question about the Big Joel debate. You had mentioned on if someone's judgment was compromised, that would be an exception to your right to defend your property. I just don't understand why that would matter.
So typically in ethics, when we talk about punishing somebody for their no, wait, hold on. I have to think for a second because you're actually correct. What I was going to say is typically in ethics, when we think about punishing somebody for behavior, their agency is very important. We need to know that you like made a decision like relatively unobstructed in order to do something. That being said, we're not really dealing out a punishment here. We're talking about a prevention of harm. In which case the whether or not they're like of the right state of mind doesn't seem to matter.
Are you talking about a prevention of harm to the person or to yourself?
To yourself.
I'm talking about we're talking about defending your property.
Well, yeah, I'm considering property as an extension of yourself, but that I'm testing.
Okay.
But mentally, I'm testing my property arguments using defense of yourself. Because when you said that intrinsically, I would say, well, actually, the other person and their ability to like knowingly commit an action is really important in terms of you defending it. But mentally, I test things with rape analogies because it's just a really good way to instantly know if I believe that or not. And so mentally, I was thinking is like, let's say somebody goes up to rape you, and your only way to defend yourself is with lethal force. But let's say that person is intoxicated and they're not thinking in the right state of mind. Like, do you have a right to defend yourself at that point? Well, I would say, well, actually, yeah, of course you would. You still would, whether they were of the right state of mind or not. You still have that right to defend yourself. So when it comes to defense of property, let's say that somebody is going to use like. Let's say an arsonist is walking up to your building. In one sense, an arsonist we'll say is like fully willing, they know everything, they're super sober, they're coming to set your house on fire, and then they do that. You would obviously, I would say you'd have a right to shoot that person to defend your building from arson. Let's say somebody else is coming up to do it, but they're drunk out of their mind, or they're like on fucking acid or some shit, they don't know what's going on. Do you still have the ability, would you still be able to defend it?
So I think so.
Wait,
because
or go ahead. Oh yeah, you can talk. Sorry, I have to think about this. But go ahead, you can talk. Go.
I'm just confused because someone makes the decision to drink. Like if someone's involved in like a DUI fatality, car crash.
Exactly. Yeah,
you wouldn't say.
And that's where my mind was going. Is my mind would say that you are in a roundabout way, you're consenting to any risks that are incurred by altering your state of mind, so it would be permissible in those cases. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think pragmatically, if someone's breaking into your house, right, you're not going to ask if they're drunk or anything.
And you shouldn't have a responsibility to. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think you have the responsibility to ask. So I think that was just a misstep to say it was an exception.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Yeah, The next question, so a challenge question to that position would be, well, what about like a mentally ill person who doesn't have the means to provide for themselves? So like, could a mentally ill person stumble into your property to break in and then you kill that person, but they never really had the means to secure medication or anything? Do you still have that right to defend yourself? I think in that case, it's a rough answer to bite the bullet on, but I think in that case, I would probably answer you still do have the right to do it, but then the failure to take responsibility for them would fall on the state or their family or whoever was supposed to be taking care of them. But I think that argument, yeah, because I think that argument is consistent with how I would view children as well. Where like, I don't think if an 8-year-old went to do something and it was like horrific, I wouldn't hold the 8-year-old responsible, but they could still be like punished for it or prevented for it. I would hold the parents responsible, right? Let's say that like an 8-year-old was about to wander into a factory, and if he went in, he like sets off a nuke or some shit because he steps into a reactor, and that kid gets shot. I would say like, well, it's permissible to shoot him, but the fault isn't the kids at that point. It would be like the person's like whoever's taking agency over that person, their caretaker or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right, that was all.
All right.
Do you think like the political extremism online, so like people jumping from like far right
To far left.
to like far, yeah, do you think like going forward, like that's gonna be something, I don't know, like in terms of like not sustainable, but do you think that's something that's like eventually gonna have such negative consequences?
I mean, I think it already does have negative consequences. It's really, really, really bad.
Yeah, I feel like I was in that position, not really, like a couple years, 4 years ago when I was 16, I like was a Trump supporter or whatever, because it was cool like in high school to like be like, oh, I like Trump. And then I kind of like started to find like my political beliefs. So I've always kind of been now in like the left or like left of center like ideology for like the last 3 or 4 years. Like that's what I like have researched and done stuff like that. But I think like I think my problem is like and I don't want to call people out, but I think like people like Seanhead do such like a great harm to like online politics.
Yeah, because they just bounce around for whatever's like the extremist, trendiest, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like promoting like if you're promoting like really far right stuff, because Seanhead was like really bad too. Like she literally defended Ethan Ralph or whatever. And I know you've gone on his podcast, but that guy's like an actual like Holocaust denier.
It's something else. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like that's super cringe. But then to see her like totally revamp her politics and now be like this super like far left like Bernie bro, it's just kind of weird to me. Yeah, I don't know if it's like if they're like grifting or if they like actually believe in what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Capitan O. It is the Excel sheet corrector. I'm sorry, the Google sheet corrector. What's up?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I was going to talk to you about like this whole universal versus means tested stuff.
Oh God. Okay.
I'm not looking to get into a big fight about it or anything.
I just think it's such a wholly worthless argument. But go for it. Hit me up. What do you got?
Well, there seems to be like an ideological divide, right? And some people are just like universal everything, and I feel like you're coming across like you're like universal is the worst thing ever. Because you're taking the opposite side to them. And
I don't think universal. So to be clear, my position isn't that universal is the worst thing ever. My position is that like if universal makes something really hard to pass because the funding requirements are fucking massive, then I prefer like a means tested thing.
I don't think your position is that universal is the worst thing ever. I'm saying
it comes across as
across that way because you're like that butting heads against the other side. So I just kind of wanted to go through some of the reasons why universal can be good.
Okay.
So I think it depends on the program, and I guess I'm going to primarily focus on the whole UBI Yang thing, because I think that incorporates some things that maybe not in other programs. So your complaint is that by doing something for everybody, it's going to make the thing cost more, right? And that's essentially the drawback.
If it makes it so that we can't pass it because it's too prohibitively expensive, then yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, or even maybe if we could pass it, why would we have a bigger draw on the budget when we could be taking that money and using it?
It seems like it's better to be more precise and just allot it to people that need it rather than just like hand over it out to everybody and then try to get it back in taxes, I guess.
Yeah. So I know this is kind of specific to Yang's UBI thing, but it was paired. His idea was paired with a national sales tax, right? So the idea being that people who make more money and maybe don't need it as much are going to be spending more money, and therefore the net effect of the two policies is going to be more money for people with lower incomes and less money, perhaps even a negative amount of money for people with very high incomes.
Okay.
So that kind of, I guess, I think addresses the we're giving money to people who don't need it.
I don't know if either of those assumptions are necessarily true, but sure. But go ahead. We're not like debating and interviewing stuff, but sure. I mean, assuming that's all true, I guess. Okay.
So then there's some benefits of it, something being universal for like the implementation of it. And I know that what you were kind of trying to get at last night was that people make this whole thing of like, oh, like the cost of, we're not going to be paying out this program to this portion, so we're going to save this money, but the cost of doing that is going to be more than is going to be prohibitive. And I don't think that's the case, but I think that there are like some significant costs when you have something that's means tested. People have
I
to
disagree.
apply.
I think it depends on the means testing. So like, for instance, for the coronavirus relief, now I'm not saying I agree or disagree with means testing it, but like if the means testing is literally like just we go over your last year's tax forms, that's pretty easy. Like the administrative cost there is going to be far, 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 far lower than the amount of money that you save, which is going to be way higher.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on the program. There's going to be like application costs in a lot of cases. They're going to need to process that. There's going to need to be review.
Yeah, there are going to be some costs, of course. Sure.
And then enforcement procedures.
Mm-hmm.
And depending upon the program, depending upon what your limit is, I mean, that's going to take up a portion of the amount that you're saving.
Sure, but to be clear, whatever proportion it takes up is going to be minuscule compared to the dollars saved.
I don't know if it's being minuscule. I would say it's going to be less.
If I had to guess the difference, like the administrative bloat, let's say we could do education free for everybody or education free for people that earn $150,000 a year or less. The administrative bloat necessary to means test that, my guess is going to be that would come out to be like 1% of the money saved. It would be like very, 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 very low. That would be my guess, or less than 5% at least.
But I think that there's a lot more that goes into it than maybe meets the eye as far as the costs of running, administering, auditing, and enforcing the program. The other negative consequences that can come out, right, is that you get people, when you've got a line, right, there's going to be people trying to game the system. There's going to be people committing fraud, people who are playing around with their eligibility to become eligible for things that they maybe shouldn't be. And often you find a lot of people are not hit. A lot of the targeted demographic are not able to get the benefit.
Well, I mean, that just depends on how you means test it, right?
Yeah. And you spoke about the corona relief and how it was like, oh, we just look back at your last tax return, and I actually have that as a problem, right? And the speed at which your program can react to changes in situations. That's like, if you don't have that problem if everybody's getting the money or if everybody's getting the benefit. There's often social, depending on the program, right? There can be social stigma, things like using food stamps. If everybody's got the same, maybe we use healthcare for this example, right? Or even college, right? If everybody's going to college under this funding, or if everybody's going through the same like Medicare for all for their healthcare, it doesn't create this two-tier thing where like, oh, you're using that Medicaid. Oh, well then that's like a specific type of person.
I mean, I'm curious how much this actually plays out culturally. I don't know if that's the case. It could be. I can't imagine that's impossible. But like, because I don't remember ever being shamed or feeling shameful for having to rely on like certain grants for college, for like Pell grants or anything like that. Or I don't remember Rachel feeling shamed that she used like WIC. I don't think we were on food stamps or anything. Like, I don't feel like shame for any of that stuff. I guess maybe some people do. Maybe that is a thing. Possible I'm like disconnected from those experiences, but like I feel like people overstate those arguments sometimes. Like, I don't know if there are people that are starving to death because they're too embarrassed to be on food stamps or something.
No, I don't think anyone who's extremely the strong end, anyone who's starving to death is gonna be able to overcome the shame. But there's people who, there might be families who could be feeding their children better, right? But the idea of going on to food stamps kind of makes them feel like they're
maybe otherwise. Yeah, I guess it's possible, sure. But I don't know if the solution there then should be like we need to just like dramatically increase the funding requirements for all of these programs twofold versus like we should just do more to combat the stigma.
Yeah. And then I guess the last point is this. I'm kind of directly looking at the UBI idea is the distance. having benefits which are cut off and which are means tested can disincentivize people to get themselves out of a situation.
Yeah, so this is a really common argument. This is easily solved by staggering the benefits. I'm hoping. I think we've moved past a world where what the fuck? Oh, I think we've moved past a world where benefits are literally like when you earn 50,000 a year, you lose everything. Like normally you ladder it off, where like you start to lose it at 50,000 and then it phases out at a certain level, right?
Yeah, I mean, most things are progressive in that regard, or phased in and out in that regard. But if you look at like the earned income credit, which I know that you're like a big fan of,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's phased in and out. It's like a bell curve. The more you earn, the more you get up to a point, and then the less you get. And that still can hold people back, and people there can be a point where you're earning money at a rate, your marginal effective tax rate is like massive as you're losing that.
Yeah, I think fucking Medlock makes this argument of like you're theoretically increasing like marginal taxes if you, but I really don't like that phrasing. I guess it's kind of true, but it's a little silly. But like the idea that taking something from somebody is the same as like actually taxing somebody, but I don't know.
Well, I'm talking about effective and like from the person's point of view, right? Like if they know that they can do this additional work, they can get a second job, and they will see like this much additional income, but they're going to lose another amount of additional income, and it makes it so that they're effectively earning, when you could say it's not taxes, but when they look at their actual funds, they're going up by like $1 an hour or less than that.
Sure, but I mean they're still making more money, right?
Yeah, but if people are they really gonna want to get a second job, or work 40 hours for like a pittance?
I mean, we already do that anyway, kind of, don't we? Like we already get more jobs or earn more money, knowing that we're gonna have to pay higher taxes on it. No.
Right, but the if you look at it from, I know you didn't like me phrasing it as like marginal tax rate, but if you look at it just from pure dollars, right? The tax rate there will be like the highest marginal tax rate that anybody in the system is experiencing.
Yeah, for a bit as your like benefits phase out, sure. But I mean, like again, like I don't know. I'm curious if like the EITC discourages. Maybe there's some research on that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some research that says like the EITC discourages people from finding more work because of the phase out or something. But like we already will try to earn more income knowing that we're subject to higher tax rates. It doesn't seem like that discourages people from earning more money. And we could also stagger it off less steeply too, so that it's not like as brutal as well if we really wanted to. It would still be like incurring a higher marginal tax rate, but maybe at a less steep level.
And with more permanent benefits, like disability type benefits, those are the kind of things where if you're on disability and you're going to get a specific amount, and if you're like, man, I feel like maybe I could get back into the workforce part time or something, but if you even consider getting a job, that can strike you off disability and just remove that. Even if that doesn't work, right? You go back and you're like, no, my back still hurts or whatever.
But yeah, sure, but like
you're screwed for disability, so you're not even incentivized to try and do better in that regard.
Yeah, but my obvious, like you would know what my obvious answer would be for this, right? This isn't even like a real objection, right? Obviously, I would say, well, we shouldn't do that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, but
like you shouldn't be like kicked out of like job. You shouldn't be kicked off of disability just because you try to get a job and it doesn't work out. That's obviously horrible if that happens. That's not an argument for like changing up my entire view of a system. That's just an argument for not doing that particular practice. That particular practice would be horrible, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I think the problem is that disability, and this goes back to some of the costs of the application, the processing, the auditing, right? Is that like disability claims can take like up to 2 years to go through the courts and everything, and require you to get attorneys. This is what we've got in place to stop people from abusing it. And
sure. Well, wait. So what should So what is the alternative? That everybody gets paid disability, or?
Well, the alternative could be a UBI. Right?
Okay.
And you can. I think Yang's idea was that you could either retain your existing benefits, right, or you could opt into a UBI where you would then no longer be able to claim other, like your means tested benefits. You would just get the UBI and be free to work as much or as little above that as you could or felt that you should.
Okay. My only issue with UBI is whether or not there's the empirical data to support it. Ideologically, I'm not really like super opposed to UBI. If it works, it works. Yeah, sure. I'm not sure what effects that would have like on labor markets if people would just like basically stop working, or if it would like fuck everything. I don't know. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I just don't know the answer to that. But I'm not like ideologically opposed to anything like that.
All right, fair enough. I just was going to go over those points. That's all.
Okay, I love you, buddy.
I got a quick question. What's your take on gender abolition and how transgender people fit into it?
So personally, I think gender abolition is based, but like it might be that maybe gender is actually like just a really important construct that most humans need to kind of like make sense of the world and survive. So I don't like push it hardcore or anything.
Wait, why though? Like, what's the like dysphoria that someone would have if like any gender, like or sex, or any sex is gonna like be able to have any trait?
It might be the case that us having a binary and strongly identifying with certain traits is just some like precondition to like at the average human's happiness. That might be the case. I don't know if it's the case now, but it might be. That's all I'm saying.
Because I was thinking like, if it's not, and like the dysphoria like that trans people have is gonna go away if we have like gender abolition society. Wouldn't it be a good idea to push more for that? And I think like transgender people are just gonna be the push that we need to get there.
I mean, if we could handle being like, if we could handle abolishing gender, then yeah, that'd probably be good. There's just less restrictions and more freedom over what people can choose to do with themselves and how they present themselves, and more opportunities for people to find things that make them happy. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just curious if you are surprised by like the ratio of people who like went to Omaha in Georgia and how few of them were like frequent DGGers as opposed to like Discorders or Redditors or YouTube.
Yeah, it's hard to say. So on one end, you would imagine that like the DGG community would be the one to be most likely to show up because they're like the most hardcore fans. But then on the other hand, it's also equally possible that there's just like such a greater number of people on the other side that it's like, oh, of course, like there's going to be more people over there showing up. Like if I've got like 1,000 loyal DGG fans and like 100,000, YouTube fans, then just by numbers, like it's going to be the case that I have more people from YouTube showing up, right?
Yeah, I guess I just expected that like DGGers would be more like hardcore into it type of thing. Like they would be like they seem like the type of group that would like follow you so like vehemently or like want to follow you so much more than like a YouTube casual viewer or whatever, which I met very like a lot of them.
Maybe
that were just like casual YouTube viewers that thought that it seemed like a fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand what you're saying, but yeah, it would be interesting.
And I also just wanted to make one request before I go. Can you stop doing the thing where you compare like real life situations like and go like, oh, that was just like this anime that I'm watching. Like I feel like
I've literally done that one time in my entire life as a joke because we're talking about Attack on Titan.
No, you don't.
Wait, what do I do? What do I compare to anime that much?
Like just probably in like the past week, you've done it like probably like 50 times.
Because we're talking about Attack on Titan.
Just with AOT.
Sure.
Yeah, but
that's the meme, dude.
But that's the thing that like anti-weebs make fun of weebs for.
Yeah, but I am
because it's super cringe.
But that doesn't work because I am actually a meta-weeb. You understand that, right? So I make fun of anti-weebs and I still make fun of weebs. What?
A meta-weeb.
Yeah, I'm a meta-weeb.
That's a totally new term to me.
No, the thing is you're taking this way too seriously, and I still take it kind of seriously, but I'm also meta about it, right? So you're kind of like Aaron, and I'm kind of like Levi. We're both like in the same world and stuff, but you're like way more serious and passionate about it. And I'm kind of taking it serious, but I was like way more chill about it. You understand what's happening?
What you just said actually made me physically like cringe. Like I curled up into a ball and cringed. That like hurt me.
Well, don't hurt yourself too much. You don't want to transform at your desk, right?
I don't even know how to respond to that. That was just so bad.
Okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
We don't watch you for your comedic wit anyway, so
it's not just for my big brain, right?
Yeah, just for your big brain and your debate tactics.
Okay, thanks. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.
So, previously
on Dragon Ball Z. Sorry, go ahead.